Hello and welcome to Grave Digging, and this is our second episode, and on this episode we're going to focus on growing sunflowers from seed. This can apply to a multitude of different seeds, but we're going to focus on sunflowers because here in Attleborough, through the bloomers, we've been handing out free seed packets. Those of you that have applied for your free seeds would have recently or will soon be receiving one of these. Don't worry if you haven't applied for your seeds yet, just send us a message through the Attleborough Bloomers with your address and we'll get some seeds out to you. But only really for the Attleborough area, because we are delivering these ourselves. Now, in your seed packets, I open it up carefully, you will find a nice healthy amount of sunflower seeds. Some of them will look very different from each other. That's because these have been collected from different sunflower heads that I've grown in previous years. Now actually I have one here. Okay, you haven't got any of the seeds from this one, but here is a sunflower seed from the previous year. This is one I collected from elsewhere and I found the plant particularly interesting. I've not sent these ones out because this is the only one I have. So I'm going to be growing this myself this year, see how it goes, and to then harvest more heads. That's why if you've applied for seeds, that we've asked you to send us one of the sunflower heads when it's done, so that we can harvest the seeds from it and do the same again next year. Now, also in your seed packet, now I was a bit rough with these, so not really doing much quality control. You will find things like this. This isn't a seed, don't plant it, it won't grow. What this is in the sunflower head, find a smaller one, there we go. When your sunflower flowers and the bees come and pollinate it, seeds then develop. And they grow in, where's my camera? There it is. They grow in these tiny little shells. And these are just where I've harvested the seeds out, and some of these have got into the seed. And just when I've been spooning them into the parcels, you've got some of these. Also, you might find, here's a good example, seeds that look like this. A little bit shriveled up, a little bit small. These probably aren't any good, these are probably dead. That's no fault of yours, or no fault, well, a little bit fault of mine for not getting them all out. But these are ones that are maybe in the centre of the sunflower that hadn't fully developed before harvesting the head. So the methods we're going to do today is you can apply to growing lots of other seeds. The principle is basically the same. Some seed packets you will find have specific instructions, and maybe best to follow those if you're growing something a bit more specialised. I've got a variety of different alternatives to pots. I've got these tiny little pots. There's probably a name or a measurement for it. These are typically what I'd want to put the sunflower in before transferring it to the ground. Now, some of you may have already sown your seeds directly into the ground. That's fine. There's no wrong way of doing this. It's just however you want to do it. I will warn you, if you have put them into the ground, that sunflowers are a really lovely target for slugs. Slugs absolutely love them. So be careful. Try and ward against slugs if possible. Top of my head, I can't think of any. There's a few different ways: putting gravel down, putting copper down. Eggshells is another one. You can try them all. The best solution really is to employ a hedgehog, but just be wary of slugs. Put up some kind of protection for them. So I've got like very standard little pot. I've also got a plastic cup. These are great because you can see all the roots develop because it's clear. You could use a food can. You could also use one of these. Now with these, if you get a tin opener, you can cut the inside top off quite nice and easily. I use one as a pen holder. I'm pretty sure everyone at the moment has got a fair few empty ones of these lying around. But you might have difficulty getting the plant out because of the shape at the top. Getting your plant out to transfer into the ground might be a problem. What else have we got? Right, we've got a couple of sort of cell trays. This is a cell tray. These things are great if you're growing a lot of seeds and you want to monitor them quite easily. They're all in rows. You can stick a label in the front of them. So if you're growing lettuce on one side, you could be putting peas in the other, next one, carrots, whatever. These are great and they're nice and organised as well. So you just plop these down on a tray and they all tessellate. It's great. For the purpose of this, I'm going to use one with slightly larger cells. The first thing, also, you'll notice I'm wearing gloves. This is because I'm going to be handling compost. And even if you buy like a well-known brand from whatever garden centre or supplier, you never really know what's in your compost. And a good compost is an alive compost. It's full of microbes, it's full of bacteria, it's breaking down what's in the compost, feeding the plants, and you don't want to be eating that. Even if you wash your hands, compost tends to get under your fingernails. So it's health and safety time. Please wear gloves when you're handling compost. I've also got a couple of eggshells. Breakfast on Sunday. I nearly broke that one. And a nice fry up. And I saved these eggshells. I didn't break them in the best way. You want a bit more of the egg. You just want a top cut off really. These are okay, but they're not necessarily great for sunflowers. When your sunflowers start to grow, so when a seed starts to grow, it's called germinating. So when your sunflowers start to germinate, they're going to start growing quick and big. So these are good for maybe smaller, slower growing seeds. But all you really need to do is you would fill them with compost and you put your seed in. And once it grows to a point where you then want to transfer it into something else, very carefully break a bit, not like that. That was a bad example. You break the shell up a bit and then you plant it. This allows for your roots to expand into its new pot and you don't have to take it out of the shell. Just remove this breaking eggshell. What is it about making an omelette? You can't break eggs. Okay, so the compost I'm using is cheap and nasty, multi-purpose. It's not the best compost. I'll see if I can find you an example as to why. For me, good compost is nice and fine, whereas the cheaper varieties you tend to find, I can't find it right now, sort of large parts, bits of wood, sticks, sometimes even seedlings already growing in it. This stuff, and another brand that I've used before, I found mushrooms growing in them when I'm waiting for my seeds to germinate. But all you really need to do, and I've already filled some of these up, is nice and easily fill your container, your tin, your beer can, whatever it is, up with compost. I'm trying to give it a bit of a push down. Don't really scrunch it down there because you want your roots to be able to expand inside. But that's nice. Because this is quite large chunks, when I water this, it will compact quite a bit, so it'll probably want a little bit more put on top later on. With the cell trays, should you choose to use cell trays, it's all personal preference. Again, you just spread some compost. This bag is nearly finished. Here's another one I prepared earlier. This stuff's a bit better. This is a bit finer. Oh, I should have done my chilies in this one. Just break it up as you're working. Here's a good example of the sort of junk you can find in compost. It's not really any good for anything. We'll leave it out. Here's another one. Bits of wood. I mean, you don't have to go and buy compost specifically from shops and bags. you could just go dig up some soil from the garden. But you will find that soil from your garden will have what we call a seed bank. And this is seeds that are waiting in the compost to grow. And if you give them the right conditions, some water and some temperature, you're going to start getting other things growing. So you just need to keep an eye out for that, really. I'm just going to compact each little cell down, make sure they're nice and full. Okay, and should we do the tin as well? Oh, let's throw some flour in that chickpea. Oh no, I want that, don't I? I'm just going to scoop this in here, because we're probably getting bored of watching me fill containers and compost. But you want to leave a little lip on top. That's another piece of junk. So, as you can see, I've filled it up to about a centimetre before the top. This is so that you can actually get water into it. If you fill it completely or overfill it, your water is likely just to run off the top. And sunflowers are super thirsty, so they're going to need some water. Okay, that's that done. Also, I would make sure you are doing this either outside or somewhere that is easy to clean afterwards. You can see the state of my table. This is fine, I'm going to brush this up and clean it afterwards, not a problem, but don't do this on your parents' carpet. Maybe even have a parent supervise. Okay, now sunflower seeds. I said that these are all harvested from previous plants. That's not technically true. There are some, I have thrown in some, that have come from bird feed. And these are great because they grow little, about 3 foot tall sunflowers, really, really nice. But some of these have come from 12-foot monsters, that one of which my nephew grew last year. So hopefully there's some good genetics in this packet. So the next step, I think you can see, I'll bring it a bit closer. You're going to need to use something to make a little hole. Pencil's good. Chopstick's good, but make sure you wash it before eating with it again. But a pencil will do just fine. And all you need to do is in each little cell or each pot, you're going to make a hole about an inch deep. I'm going to do that for each of those. Cool, I made a hole in there. I'm going to do these two as well, and I'll do the rest off camera. But I'm going to release videos with progress as they start to grow and as they start to germinate, so you guys can grow them along with me if you haven't sowed your seeds already. So I've made my little hole to get my sunflower seed, and I'm going to plant it pointy end upwards. I'm just going to drop it in that hole, and then you can just smush that compost back over. And I did that off camera. I'll do the next one so you can see. So taking my sunflower seed, pointy end up, and just dropping it in. Cover it up, and job's done. And I'll do that same with the cell trays and all the pots. If you're growing something that's a smaller seed, say lettuce, carrots, etc., you may partially fill your cell trays or your pot, sprinkle the seed over, and then cover with compost again, rather than doing little holes. Foxgloves is another great one. Seeds are microscopic, they're tiny. Rather than picking each individual one out, it's easy just to spread and then pick through them later on. I'm going to do the rest of this off camera. I'm going to probably name all of them. When I come to doing these ones, I will label them separately because I want to keep a close eye on these. And just have fun. Use whatever you've got around you. You could use yogurt pots. You could use anything really. Anything that's going to hold the compost. With something like this, there's no holes in the bottom. I would advise making a few little drainage holes. If you're growing in plastic, you could get a parent or an adult to heat up a nail and just poke some holes through. That will work perfectly, because your pots, you can see, have holes in them. And this is so that your seeds don't get waterbogged and then rot. Seeds are very susceptible to becoming too wet and then rotting, and then they die. But you just need to make sure that they're not dry. So I will water these after sowing all of the seeds. Give them a nice gentle water, and then maybe every day just make sure give them a little bit of water without flooding them too much. You're going to want to grow them. Like I said, this would be the last stage. I would grow them in pots. If you're doing the small cells, you're going to want to, when they get maybe about 5 inches tall, then they have what's called true leaves. When your sunflowers first germinate, they'll put out a set of little round leaves, which are very similar to lots of different plants, and then they'll grow a further stem, and they'll grow what's known as true leaves. This is what you'll see most commonly on your sunflower. Once they've got those true leaves, transfer them into something else. I'm going to grow them in these until they're about 20 to 30 centimetres tall, and then I'm going to transfer them into the ground. Don't worry if you've already transferred yours into the ground. Like I said earlier, just keep an eye out for slugs. And I think that is all worth recording at the moment. Like I said, if you haven't applied for any seeds, we have plenty. I literally have jars from previous years. Like the Attleborough bloomers, send us a message, and just make sure you're sending us those photos of progress, and that you send us a head from one of your plants once they finish growing. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and good luck growing, diggers. See you next time.